All right, here we go. This is the welcome introduction to Race Manager. As you can see, I just went ahead and opened up Race Manager, double click the Race Manager icon, and right here at the startup screen. Initially, as you guys do your Race Manager software and install it for the first time, you will see some notifications on a database, and then secondary to that, you'll have some track member numbers set up. But once you're past that, this is kind of the introduction. So if you are installing it for the first time, check out the installation and setup video, and we'll go through a brief setup over there. But for here, we're going to kind of go through the preferences and what every button is on this layout. And again, it's for the first time of Race Manager. If you've never used it before, this is a great place to start. So as you open it, you're going to notice a couple things on at the bottom of the screen. Your SQL Server, that's what Race Manager runs on. It's Microsoft SQL Management Studio, and we use some software internally to make some changes and edits to the software, and that's kind of what it's driven on. So if you ever start seeing SQL errors or things like that, it's all Microsoft-based software, and there's obviously something going on with your Windows software. So those kind of errors, obviously give us a call. We can bail you out through those. But once you're successfully installed and ready to go, you'll see a program version at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see a database version. You always want to make sure the program version stays very, very close to the number that's posted on the track operator dashboard. You'll notice that there's two numbers you really want to be looking at, and that's the last two. The 10 is part of the program version, and then really the release number, the 18. And you'll see, if you start seeing that your number isn't matching and it's much lower than what's posted, you probably time for an update. And again, the database version is something that week by week can increase if you're doing the writer updates properly. So you'll see, as we started this year, on the first week of January, this database version said 10.1, and then as the weeks go on and we release writer updates, it's already up to update number 21 of the year, and we're only looking at June 1st. So the points version is not necessary, and don't worry if it says points database not installed. That's more of functionality for state finals, or obviously at the national level, us hosting national championships at the Grand Nationals and some things that those points databases come into play. So in the normal operating world, you won't really need to see one, and don't be alarmed if it says points database not installed. So as you jump in, think of the program more of a left to right, just like you're reading a piece of paper. On your left side is all of the items that you need to start with in the morning of your race software, and by the evening of running a race, you'll be way over on the right side as far as these tabs go. And that's very self-explanatory as you get there and you open up Race Manager. If the very first thing you try to do is click the registration tab, you'll get the option that says navigation disabled because you have not set up an event yet. So the very first part of it would obviously be setting up an event, and that's to start a new event, or you can open an event, or you can close an event, and obviously you can copy an event, which we'll get into copying events and even creating events in the next video, in later videos. So if you're already to that step, take a look there. For now, we're just going to continue looking through the menus. The file menu is where you will find the majority of the same buttons that were right there, and then obviously your database management items, which include the backup and restore of a database. It doesn't harm your computer at all to do a backup. Don't really dabble in doing a restore backup unless it's something we're directing you to do for means of like maybe moving computers or something. It is a tool in there, but again, if you restore a backup, you're kind of reverting yourself to an earlier version of your database, which you most likely won't want to do. It's much like deleting a lot of things. So again, if you ever feel that you've got something really important and you're afraid to lose it, go ahead, hit that create backup, and it's just going to reference the file location, which is always in the My Documents folder. There's a USABMX folder, so it's just automatically going to throw a backup in there if you were to go ahead and click that backup button. Obviously, we won't for time constraints because it could take upward of a few minutes to do that. But the main thing in this menu that you'll be using on a regular basis is the rider update. When you click on that, there you go, rider update. And we'll go through that process in a different video where you can actually just watch a video strictly on rider updates. But that is kind of the idea of the database menu. And then the main menu that you'll always use through here is the preferences. When you go into preferences, the majority of the time it's going to be because you need something to do with your printers, or you're more or less setting up the track. This database I have right now, I went out and grabbed from the local track here in Arizona, Black Mountain BMX. Most of you know as one of the tracks that we've held the Winter Nationals on for many years. So they've set up all their additional information, and that's for their moto sheets, so that their moto sheets don't say no street, no city, no state on the sheet. It's very customized, and it says Black Mountain BMX. It has their phone number. The phone number is great because if you've got people posting pictures of their children's moto sheets online and they end up on Facebook and other social media, you've now got your phone number out there. So make sure that's a good number and a number that you've got a message on. Track setup is really kind of where it opens to, but you really need to hit the track setup button, and you'll also see you can put a logo in there. Now they don't have a logo, but if you were to right click, gives you the option to load it, and then you choose your file, your JPEG or a bitmap image, and that'll place your track logo on the right side of the moto sheets. The track member numbers, will have a whole separate video on the setup of getting a range of numbers into your computer, but this is something that we may from time to time ask you to reference. We may need those, and of course if you're out of numbers, that is where the request new range button is. When you press that button, it's going to basically prompt you with this menu telling you to call one of us, and it also has the registration key that we would need in order to issue these 3 sets of numbers to you. The custom fees is the menu where you can set up your own fees. As you can see, Black Mountain has their fees set. They do a little bit different for racing. $10 and $12 is their normal pricing. If someone's going to practice that night, they've got it at $8. I don't know if these are their current double and triple point fees, but you can obviously edit all of these, and we'll show you where that comes into play later when we're setting up an event. Your printers, the printer option. You've obviously got printers installed on your computer. Any printer installed in your computer, you'll find in this menu here. So as you set up for moto sheets or membership applications, you'll need to set one for each. If the track has a receipt printer, you'll also see the receipt printer option, and you can set that up. The other options is, you'll notice the moto sheets assign bike letters. If there's duplicate numbers, it'll assign a letter. If you happen to not have all of the alphabet, you can assign what portion of the alphabet you do have available as numbers to give out. And it looks like Black Mountain's case, they like to print a lot of B's, C's, and D's. So those are the numbers they want to use. But if you did happen to have A, B's, and E's, you would just put A, B, and E in there. If you only have F's, H's, and J's, there you go. If you've got a full string of the alphabet, feel free to put all those numbers in there, and then it will use those as needed on the moto sheets. The database server, that we'll get into with networking, but that is where you go to reference connecting the database to another computer in the instance that you're going to run 2 or 3 windows at your sign-up window. You'll see other options for different computers in there. The scoring tab gives you default to after race scoring. or auto print on transfer. The auto print on transfer is if you've got quarters and semis as you're going through there and you transfer enough riders to the next round, it'll automatically print that semi sheet or quarter sheet to post on the moto board and get out to your staging crew. After race scoring, we'll get into that in the scoring section of a different video, but if you don't ever score during the day and you do all your scoring at night once you've ran the race, you might as well go in here and default it to after race scoring so you're not having to check that box every week. The report options. We've got all the different types of reports. Obviously, you've got membership applications, moto sheets, the print package, and the receipts. If on the receipt you would like it to say, thanks for racing Black Mountain, you can add that to the receipt. Some tracks like to put their website down there. That will be on the receipt. Again, if you don't have a receipt printer, some of that becomes irrelevant, but good to know that it's there. Print packaging is when you're auto printing the transfers or whenever you want to go print moto sheets, you can have it print a complete package. Say for instance, you've got 2 or 3 stagers, you may have 2 announcers, don't know how many scores you're using, but they may want additional sheets. But however many sheets you would like to get out there, so if you've got 2 staging, 1 announcing, and 1 scoring, which is very, very common, or sometimes you get into, there's 2 announcers and they both want sheets, you can set that up, and this again is more of a default. You can obviously change it as you're going to print. Those options are there, but this defaults it to what you like, and it will use it week after week. The moto sheets, multiple classes per page, that does exactly that. It puts more than 1 class on each page of paper. If you uncheck that, only 1 class will print on every page of paper. So if you've got 15 classes and 15 motos, you're going to get 15 sheets of paper, where in the case of multiple classes per page, you may only end up with 4 sheets of paper for 15 motos. The downside to that is when you've got 9-rider classes that are combining, it makes it very, very confusing on the moto board. If there are multiple classes per page, someone may miss that. And also, it's harder for your stagers to assign main gates if they're not printed on single sheets of paper. But again, just a customizable option for you guys. Obviously, if you've got legal paper printing out of a legal printer, more than welcome to check that. It will always do that too. The application, same thing. Legal size paper, or you can also print the back of the application. Completely up to you. And again, these are just all options. There's other ways to get to these options in later menus when we go into detail about those. And I think we've covered all the menus here except for the sanction setup, but that's really not something you'll need to worry about, as your track setup includes your country for your sanction setup. So if you're looking to see what logo is going to be on there, that's where you want to look. But the sanction setup as far as the track and country is right there. If you choose Canadian, you'll be getting Canadian applications and a Canadian moto sheet. So probably not something you want to do unless the Canadians are watching. So obviously if you're from Canada and you're getting US applications with US pricing on them, this is where you've probably set up something wrong and you need to go in there and choose Canada. And for US, if you happen to be getting Canadian applications with the Canadian fees, you've got yourself set to Canada. So that's where that's controlled, and that pretty much solves our preferences menu. So we will jump into the tools menu. There's a couple tools in here right now, and you'll see more as life goes on here, but the point tools, if you're running a state final, you always want to clear everybody's adjusted values before you start the state final to make sure there's no point adjustments for anybody in there. And then secondly, there's a verify and repair button. That's going to verify and repair your database if you're having problems. If you're not having any problems, you don't really have a need to run this. But if you're ever encountering problems in moto sheets not printing, or moto sheets coming out blank, or corrupted rider information, we may tell you to go to the verify and repair tool. that is where it is. So I'm going to open up one of their past events here, and just not for the ability to teach you the event portion of it, but to get into the report menu. And we'll go through those real quick. Jacket reports is mainly driven at our national level database. So don't worry about the jacket reports in there. I'm sure if you run one on a local database, you're probably not going to get much information. In fact, I think it just comes up completely blank. So again, you're not able to really check on jacket reports for riders receiving open jackets at nationals, nor the Top Gun reports, but that is what that menu is for. Membership applications is a menu you will use a lot of the time. The application back does exactly that. It gives you the back of the application. Remember that the application is front and back. So what this does is give you an option to kind of pre-print the application backs and then load them upside down in the printer so that you can then print the application in its front and back. And we'll get into application and membership printing a little bit later. But if we get into that portion and we're talking about loading the back of the application in the printer, this is where you get some of those. And you can just, obviously the preview menu is something that you'll see in a lot of our reports. You can obviously export the document. If you click this very small arrow next to it, it gives you a lot of different options in the file export, what type of file. The printer with the question mark asks you which printer you would like to print to, and you can choose that printer. And you would want to print multiple pages of these, maybe 10 or 15, that way you have them on hand. And then the printer icon without the question mark just automatically sends it to the default printer on the computer. The other two options in the application menu is the renewal signature form. Most of you have seen this if you renewed online and didn't sign online, or haven't completed the signature of some way. Membership may have sent you a copy of this. You may need it. A writer may come to you and say, hey, my points say sig missing, or even better yet, the office sent me a letter. How do I get that taken care of? Well, here's a tool right here where you can print one out and just hand it to them, and they can give it back to you, and you can send it in with your TORFs. The last thing in the report menu is the most important, and this is pre-printing applications. This is how you get applications if you want some on hand at the track, if you want to go to an event and hand some out and try to recruit members. This is how you do it. Obviously gives you the option to do any of the three types. If we choose a 1 day, you can choose up to 99 applications. I like to do a dozen. And if you hit print, it's going to automatically start printing those applications to your printer that's installed. And then you'll have applications ready with a serial number on them, ready to enter into Race Manager. And I think if we get lucky, I should have a preview here. So on this preview, you'll see the application, and then right here is where I was talking about there being a number. This would be the rider's serial number. Even though they haven't filled out the paper yet, there's a serial number already assigned to this piece of paper and a validation code to get them into Race Manager. And that same information is down there on the receipt, and it's also loading in the track name. So it's loading Black Mountain BMX in, and it's also assigning that person their member ID number before they've even filled out the papers. So you can pre-print up to 99 of these at a time, and really you can do another 99 right after that if you'd like to have a couple hundred on hand. But I really suggest you only do about a dozen or two, as they tend to disappear, blow away, get dirty. They sit in the sign-up building, and you end up having to print more. And we are dealing with ranges and blocks of numbers that you are housing in the computer. So the more you use, the more times you have to call us to get numbers. But if you're selling those applications, we've got no problem in giving you more numbers. But if it becomes a point where you're constantly printing applications and they're never getting used, we'll probably have to look at your number range at some point. But feel free to definitely print some applications and have them on hand. As you can see, I did do my 12, so you'll see this number 02575131, and then as we go down the line, 132, and then you should see 133. and those numbers will just continually sequentially move on out the line as you print those. And obviously you can go back again if you want a dozen 1 days and then you want to do some fulls and some 30 days, you can also do that. The next menu is the moto sheets. I don't think we've got moto sheets for this race that I'm currently on, but when you go to that moto sheet menu, it gives you a very similar screen to where we were before with the print package. And it basically is up front. It asks you what kind you would like, what rounds or all rounds, multiple classes per page, the print with finishes. Print with finishes is basically your scoring sheets that you may be mailing to us. That button is available. Obviously the same thing as always, the print on legal papers there. And we'll get more into printing moto sheets in a different video. The pre-reg report, it's something you can use if you've got riders registered or you're doing a state race and you did pre-registration. You want to confirm you did everything correctly. The pre-registration report does work. I don't think there's riders registered for this race, but that is the format it'll be in. If anyone has ever been to a national, I'm sure you've seen it posted. It's the exact same report, and so you guys can use that. It'll hold up to 3 days of racing, all in the same event, all in the same pre-sign. So if you're running a 3-day event and you did pre-signs for it, feel free to use the pre-sign report to post that for corrections. The age class summary report, we'll get into more of some of these reports as we go, but that'll be a report you can get some numbers for your TORF off of as far as rider count, number of motos, all that good stuff. A race entry report, again, is much like, we don't have any registration. Let me jump into an older event and pull up some of their race entries. So you'll see as we run the race entry report, it's literally line by line, each person, what their name is, what class they raced. I got the age class summary report. Go ahead and give you a preview of that one. It is very clear. You had 15 motos, 57 riders, and that's the information you will need for your TORF. So it's a good place to get it. If you guys do trophy slips or do anything at the finish line to hand out trophies, you can also get your trophy count dependent on what place you give awards down to. And obviously it looks like this race, the biggest class only had 4 riders. The pro cut report, not really needed. If you're running a pro class, it will give you the 3-round cut on who made the main and who didn't make the main. But those classes do need to be flagged as a pro. It will not work for pro-ams. Teams, we'll get into team stuff later. Team points audit, all based off the team tab over here. The list. The list is something pretty interesting. We use it at nationals. It's going to come up blank most of the time for a local race, but it generally, if you've got any classes with semis, quarters, eights, or any other qualifying rounds other than just straight to a main, it's going to list those classes, and it's going to list their semi-moto numbers or quarter moto numbers and the amount of riders that are qualifying. It's more of a reference sheet to kind of get a timeline of how your night's going to go as you're running the race. Championship standings is if you're running a state final, you may get into this. The rest of these are all series that we run at the national level. Obviously Canadian Grands, US Grands, and again, if you're not on a national database, this information isn't something you want to be printing out to riders because it's going to be inaccurate, because you need basically our points database to be able to run something like that. So don't ever, and you may get results as you print those, and don't ever post those and tell people those are their national points or their rankings, because they're way off. But all those menus are in there, but the one you may end up concerned with is the state points report if you're running a state final. And again, we'll have separate videos for those tracks hosting state finals, showing them kind of how to get their report and going about any points adjustments or tiebreakers. So that pretty much sums up your menus. We'll go into an event setup in the next video, and then we'll move forward as we get on through this thing, and we'll get you through all this, and you'll be printing motos and running races very soon.